You took me for a fool. You swindled me. I have spent 167 years searching for you, and now, satisfaction will be mine.
Hello. Hey, Marcus. Congrats. You've obviously won the 11-second club this month with your very funny piece. My name's Chris Hurtt, and I'm going to be doing the critique. And yeah, about me, I'm currently an animation supervisor at Framestore Film in London. I'm working on a new Marvel series for Disney Plus. Probably all I could say. But I've worked on, let's see, most recently before that was Tom and Jerry, the lead animator. Then I was at Industrial Light and Magic London for a few years, Ready Player One, Aladdin, things like that. And you can find my whole big long resume at, I guess my website, probably the easiest, at www.chrishurt.com. But I've been doing it for about 20 some years now, maybe longer. And I started off at Disney, and I've worked at ImageWorks and Double Negative and yeah, Industrial Light and Magic, a few other places here in between, and started in LA and currently in London for the past 10 years. But enough about me. Let's dig in on to your piece here. Let's just watch it through once on its own.
You took me for a fool. You swindled me. I have spent 167 years searching for you, and now, satisfaction will be mine.
Okay, a lot of great stuff here. First of all, just a very cool, fun concept with death, of course, being our main character here, and then making it work really well with the line by having the 167 years that he talks about, kind of make a sort of sense because a turtle obviously could be that old, at least as far as I know. So that's very clever, getting that to work. Um,
167 years.
Plus, I don't know if you're a Seventh Seal fan. I'm definitely a fan of that film. So anytime Death is in something with a black robe and a scythe, I'm for it.
Now, satisfaction will be mine.
But yeah, nice design with some camera moves in there as well and things like that. Um, cool. And yeah, I like the character design as well. So let me just dig in with some thoughts, if I may be so bold. Uh, so watching it first glance, one thing that stood out to me just kind of timing wise is the first time we see our turtle fella here, if the shot feels a little fast and abrupt. I think we cut in okay. I think we just needed a little longer to watch him a beat longer in this pose here. Let's see how long this shot is for starting point. So starts at 36, and I don't know if that was the last frame I did before, and ends. Okay, so it's 20 frames, which is okay. But I think what probably is hurting it is if you see the head turn stops moving, we get like maybe 3 frames, 3 to 4 frames at the end in this last pose. And typically, for the end of a cut of a shot, these are all shots. The audience needs about at minimum 6. Usually, the guide is 8 frames of kind of the last pose, holding it in order for that pose to register. Just because by coming across the cut into the next shot, it's such a big thing that it kind of scrambles and we have to catch up. So even at the beginning of like the next shot, we typically try to have 6 to 8 frames where things aren't moving too much for the eye to be able to register the whole new thing that's happening in the shot. So I think that's part of what's happening there. You could maybe try. I don't think you want to speed this up though, because it feels right for having it be, a nice lethargic thing. So my feeling is you probably would just extend the shot a little bit longer by maybe about 8 frames, so he can just, you know, have a beat of looking, which would be kind of nice. They're like, and then cut. Instead of like right now, it's like cut. It's like just when you're like, oh, okay, what's it? It cuts on you. So yeah, and I don't think you need to cut in order for this next shot to work. In fact, that's kind of my next point to discuss. Is it's a little jarring going into this next cut of death for a couple reasons. One, the line. So he says, and I only know this because I looked at the transcript. You swindled me. So it's with the way he says it, it almost I can't quite make it out. It sounds like stinted me, or like his accent is very um, heavy in a way that the enunciation of the words, for my ear at least, I couldn't tell what that actually was. So by not seeing him, that's a bit frustrating as well, and a little jarring to hear a line that you don't understand happen. Basically with the character off camera. It's happening right around here. Unfortunately, audio scrubbing doesn't seem to work on my browser, which is unfortunate. But right here, as you can see on the timeline, this is where he's saying Stinton, Swindle. It was still on the turtle. So that's, if anything, yeah, it would be nice to see him for that moment. So that might have meant flipping the stuff around a little bit in order to have this a little earlier, or yeah, something to just help tie that line in. I do have another suggestion for that though, which kind of helps two things. Because the other part that's jarring about this is we cut and he's down in this pose, right? And the last time we saw him, if I clear out these drawings, was here. So it's a pretty big change. Not even really so much for our man Death, but look, the scythe completely moves to the other side of him. And this was, we said 20 frames, right? So we didn't see any of that happen during here. So it's a bit like, how did he get down there? You don't expect him to be there, particularly for our center of interest on him, his head. Like that's the last place we're looking. And what's nice about your cut here is that stays, pretty much the same. That's that here, and that's it here. So our eye doesn't have to jump around. But then when we come to here, he's come down there. So I'm expecting to look here, or actually, kind of there. But I'm remembering in my mind's eye that the skull was there, but now it's down there. So for a moment, I'm a little disoriented from that as well, between him being much lower and I'm looking at empty sky, and the scythe coming over and like that. I'm like, whoa, how do you get down there? Um, Now you could have him move down in this shot in order to help that, but I kind of have another suggestion that might work without changing that, which is on this shot here. We talked about swindled me. We don't know that we don't really make out that line so well. I think you could consider for this shot reframing him a little off to the other third, or even just slightly beyond half, and doing this as an over the shoulder with Death. Now, one thing that does mean is you'd have to have the scythe in as well, which might be a potentially bad thing compositionally, having it in between those two. It kind of, that's not great. Hadn't thought about that. Let's see. Anything we could do about that? I mean, you would have to, potentially put it over here, but that would then cut with this, having it over there. Where is it the next time we see it? Next time we see it, still over there. We don't really see it at all in here, which is a bit, we don't quite miss it, but it would be nice to include it. I guess it's down the whole shot until he raises it up. So that's something that would be, worth even just seeing maybe the edge of it and then having it dropping out, just so we acknowledge that he hasn't thrown it away or something at this point, or doesn't have it anymore. But yeah, actually, I'm not sure about this idea now of the over the shoulder, just because if you did do it, then I would not have this. I would have the side on the other side. So I would do this. Oops, what have I done? Yeah, around this one. I had another one open just in case I needed it. I would have it be like this. So you're just over the shoulder, nice and simple. And the thing about having this happen, right, if this is death, is one, we just keep them engaged. So we know we haven't necessarily cut to another scene. Um, Also, you can then animate him. So you could have him, bunched down at the end of the shot, anticipating across the cut into this and get into that crunch down pose at the end, you know? And then even maybe introduce the scythe kind of as part of that type of thing. Might be too much to do all of that, but you could just do a few frames to help tie them together and explain why he's now down, you know, by starting that anticipation there. And if he's holding, this guy is doing that hold, that's the perfect time to kind of overlap that action of him coming down there. And then gives a little tie across on these shots versus kind of just coming in static. So that's probably how I would approach it personally, is I would just slightly reframe this one with him maybe, he was kind of this side of halfway, shift him all over here. It might even make a slightly better silhouette. His hands are out off to the side, and then this is either here or there type of thing. You know what I mean? Because like now you wouldn't have his hands within his body. You'd be able to like get them a little bit clearer over here type of thing. Yeah, and that, I mean, compositionally, it kind of works a little better too, because if his kind of interest, if you will, is the character that's off screen over here, you'd probably want to compose him. Oh, we're not showing this necessarily one to one, it looks like. Hang on a minute. I want to make sure we're seeing everything and we're not, felt like we were overly zoomed in. Okay, well, not that. Fit to width. Okay, nothing to the side, right? Okay, that's better. Pardon me about that. So yeah, your composition is a little more balanced. But I think you could still get away with that, like pushing it over just a bit, and then that gives you room for all that business we were talking about of like, maybe we could still have the hands within the silhouette, but I think you get my point. You could then have this over here, and it wouldn't be hurting anything, and it would all work with this other stuff and being over there. Wait, is that the right thing again? Okay, yeah. So this one, then you would maybe bring him more towards center or just a little right of center and so on. Now, next, Alt 1, try to remember that. Just a little bit about the animation of the turtle guy here. Feels a little clunky on his head. You could definitely, try and try for a cleaner arc, or, oh, there we go. A cleaner arc for, the circle of his head, especially since it's so short of a shot. We want this to be pretty well, pretty clean. And that feels pretty good there. Oh, we've got so many onion skin drawings. Turn this down a bit. We don't get so much Mr. Death stuff. There we go. it's really kind of the spacing on these first two. If you look at, like, if we just do the beak, where you do the edge, where he gets these big changes here, but then see right here he's almost the same on these in betweens, and then we suddenly get the 3/4 line. So yeah, just feels like that could be a bit cleaner. And then there's this, slight weirdness where his belly kind of changes its design and comes in and out, and the other arm is fairly indistinct. I almost don't know if you need it. I think it's doing more harm than good just having this sort of random green thing off to the side. Whereas if you didn't have it, or go a little more definite, like just have his fingers, so we know what that is on his belly, or you could, kind of mirror what's happening on this side, type of thing. Just a little more structure to it. Also, watch out for just these guys being same timing, and a little bit of you know losing their volume and kind of stopping before everything else. I'm guessing you put your energies really into the death character, because that's what it kind of shows. Okay, so then after that, my thoughts were, let's see, for this shot.
Spent 167 years.
I mean, I love all the stuff with the eyes and the ears hitting that, really punching it forward is nice. And here's the thing again: if you have death in, you know, over the shoulder on these shots, you could continue that push in on this just across the cut, and it'd be just a nice little ding, across these, and kind of just tie these things shot to shot together more, versus feeling, kind of like slightly disconnected at this point. You'd have little bits of action kind of gluing them together across, that would, be subtle enough that they wouldn't be screaming out, but it's usually a very satisfying thing when you kind of stitch the shots together with some overlapping action like that. Okay, so we start off with in there.
Has spent 167 years.
I think what you could do as well with this is, he feels a little through the whole shot very low, and I think one of these accents or moments you could have the head come up to give some variety, so that everything isn't happening below this line. Um, just purely from a variety standpoint, he just starts to feel a little crowded down here. You're like, is he ducking because something is gonna come? And it doesn't really need to happen. You know, I think maybe what would help is, like, for this, maybe you have this happen more in a more normal default position, type of thing, and then when you do these, maybe they're a little bit lower, but it's kind of more on a third, and then that way, for this punch, maybe you'd give that a bit of an arc. It could go like that. You'd have an antic up, and then give it something like this to really. That's your biggest kind of punch, isn't it? And you've got, the scaling up, but it's just happening sort of, within this kind of thing, getting bigger like that, where, a nice rotation on the head, but you could give just the ball of it something like that, type of deal, which then again, if you don't stop on the end, if you just continue it a bit, you can have it do just a little bit of overshoot and come back on this shot to sew 'em up.
7 years searching.
I love the stuff with the tongue, and I love that it's like green. Oh, even his gums. That's great. Okay. Turn off drawings for a moment.
100.
So for the sickle in general, just make sure to give it as much love as you give everything else, right? You can see how it kind of just stops and hits here. Oops. You want to give it a nice spacing coming in, and not just come in and hit and then just, stop right there. You want to give it a bit of ease in, type of thing, just to remove some mechanicalness to it. And even an overshoot and come back would be nice to give it just a little bit of weight, you know. Because each time right now it's just kind of shifting one pose to another type of thing. Also, you might consider this tree, how much it's competing and giving you tangents, you know, throughout the shots here. It's a nice thing, but maybe you could either knock it back and like give it some of this mist so that it's not as strong as him and almost joining up with the black of that. Or I almost wonder if you don't need it and you want to keep this space clear, have it as a you know, maybe a bigger tree here. Maybe you just have a branch come in if you need another kind of framing device. That'd almost be a nice arrow towards the character. Versus this is pretty complex, you know, very high contrast. And what happens a lot is you'll have your hand in front of it, and it's sort of a similar thing, and it's getting a little complicated and lost against that. Whereas I think if you had that against a new, you know, very flat background, it would just read clear all your animation for that. Yeah, for this kind of stuff, particularly like this point, see how it's like really got all the same kind of curvilinear lines as this. It's really um, competing for a very important thing. Even this isn't so much in a clear spot either. Okay, next. Uh,
7 years searching for you, and now
that's great, and that has enough time. Like everything reads, and it's cool. Like you've left the rest of the body totally still, so it's not got any of those issues that the other one had. And here you don't have the hand, and we don't miss it. You know, so that's definitely an easy fix, easy solution for that for him.
years searching for you, and now
Okay, so check out where we left Mr. Death.
I spent 167 years searching for you.
Where do we go? So here he's really big. Um, I mean, you could, yeah. We talked about having his head in, and I'm still kind of a fan of this idea, to be honest, because you could also have
Years
him
searching for you.
like he's saying, searching for you. You can have just the simplest of animation of just like, you know, some up and down on the head, and you know, a little bit of action on the shoulders to tie in that line, and it'd just be very entertaining and satisfying to see something delivering that line more than like each time we're on him. It's just, you know, coming out from off screen each time. You know, nothing's really giving it, um, giving us, letting us know or letting us enjoy where it's who's delivering it, type of thing.
Years searching for you, and now
And then you could do something to kind of, you know, I kind of like that this is jarring, so I don't know if you would want to have a big move at the beginning of this to tie into that. You could try it. Um, it almost might be interesting to have him antic back out and then enter in the frame on this. That might be a way to go. It might be interesting to have this frame like every time we have him in here, and then he exits out, right? And then we don't see him at first, and then you to give this more impact,
and now
you just have this big move that you have, right? You keep this move coming forward, but instead of coming from a stop, which feels very close, so we almost would expect to see them come in here to keep that distance between them. Instead, he's anticked out, and then you come here, and then like, or even this is maybe even less than that. This is like the beginning of it, type of thing. And he comes into frame for that big, and now
you, and now
I didn't play it like that. You know, I would even maybe give it that same rule we were talking about before, give it 2 frames of nothing. So this would all be, let me mock it up really fast. Okay, and then we'll just make that like less, and then a little less, and then yeah, keep that, and then let me grab this one. Bear with me, sorry. Speed drawing this. Okay, let's just even try playing that. See if it works.
And now.
Not quite. I'm hoping you're getting the idea, even though I haven't quite drawn it successfully. Let me get black. Black, great, smaller. So nothing, and then beginning of his head. I guess it's more trying to feed it into up there. Okay.
You and now.
I mean, I can see that that would basically work. It's a little probably complicated to see. Let me turn this off and this off. Might make it easier to see.
You and now.
Yeah, just have him enter with that. That'd make it a little punchier. Okay, and then that's all fun. I love the camera move. I know it's probably a difficult thing to do, but the camera moves feel linear. So, you know, you'd still want to have a bit of an ease out and an ease in. Right now, the spacing, if this is a camera move, feels totally linear, and you just want to make sure that, well, I drew an ease out there, but they just, you know, instead of just it goes as a little slow out, speed up, and then slow in to be a little more organic versus.
And now. Satisfaction will be mine.
I think this is well handled, having his head come off screen there. Then we discussed the idea of, like, you know, maybe having the scythe not disappear. I don't know if you necessarily have to have that. One thing to watch out for is this piece of vertebrae kind of comes and goes. And I think you'd want to, like, try to establish it a bit stronger throughout. Like, it's missing here. You want it there. Just otherwise it flashes. This is a nice detail having it here, but that's like the one time you see it, so that flashes as well. And always, when you have this kind of thing, you need at least 2 frames in order to see something. Anything that happens on 1 frame is just naturally gonna flash. So we always try to do any sort of thing in 2 frames. Like, you could even have it there to help that. And then watch out, it kind of, you know, does a changes. It kind of jumps up there, doesn't it? From there to there, and then it's going back down again. Okay.
Satisfaction will be mine.
And yeah, same with the camera coming up. I think here is a good opportunity to do a nice big overlap with it all. So if this is the last pose here, let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're like, yes, we love this. Let me get a different color rather than red. We love this pose, nice and strong. All right, very clear, good stuff. Just, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you just do something where everything's Well, maybe for that we would do that different, but okay. For the side, so like, stretched a bit, hands a little higher, a little straighter on the elbows. Doesn't have to be totally straight, and then a little more rotated. Oh, I didn't put through his hands. Down, so then it can come back again. And like for the same thing, like um, you know, pull the shoulders down, so then they can hunch up for this bit. And then you might even have one more where just like the shoulders then relax. So you just get you know, a, an overshoot on it, a little overlap. Right now it just goes up, and you just want to type of thing. And that'll just make it more satisfying. Plus, it'll give more weight to that side by having just even some sort of overlap to it.
Action will be mine.
And then for this bit here, it's a sort of a timing thing as well with the turtle.
Mine.
It happens pretty quick on the cut. Let's see how many frames we get. 1, 2, 3, 3, and he's starting to move, which is, it's on the edge. I would maybe try giving a couple frames at the beginning before he goes into this. I do love that you antic up like this before zipping in. That's very nice. But I think you need a little longer before our man opens his eyes, like another 2 frames maybe, because I'm still kind of absorbing everything that's happened here, and I kind of miss the beginning of him coming out of it when I first watched this shot. Um, let me clear these out. Let me turn off drawings. We'll watch that.
Be mine.
Yeah, and maybe the double blank also isn't helping, because his eyes are closed, right? And then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 frames are closed again, and then it opens in 1. It's only closed for 1, 2, and it opens. So that gets very, very flashy. It's like a lot of this happening very quickly right after a cut again. So it's a lot to absorb, and we've had this thing kind of do its thing. So I would just kind of drag the timing out a bit more on that, so that it's not happening so fast. And one thing that kind of confused me a little bit, my eye, I think, was when we cut back. I almost was reading this part as his eye, just because I was like focused here. This happens really fast, and then I see this move, and I'm like, oh wait, did his eye move over? Like I didn't quite register it. So I'm wondering if you maybe did something like that for his eye, just gave it a bit of a thicker black line. It still feels squinted up, but it wouldn't just be lines that are a little hard to 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 recognize quickly off the bat. And then it won't be such a big, huge thing. I'd give this more frames. I would go from like, I'd give it a little more to open type of thing. Yeah, same there. Another like closed for 1, 2, and then boom, huge open. I could maybe have be a little smaller. Just it still be snappy, but you just don't want it like if it's going from that to that in 1 frame, it can be a little hard to read. And just giving that a bit of thickness would probably help as well.
Be mine.
Okay, and then let's just do some parting thoughts on this.
Be mine.
So I think I need to wrap it up.
Be mine.
Yeah, and I think timing wise too, if he's here longer, what I kind of stumbled on a bit was I felt like it happened soon enough. Like, see how this just moves here, and his eyes are opening, and then it's still moving. I feel like he might have seen what happened, So then it's a little hard for me to believe that he's like, where did he go? He's looking each direction for him. So I would just delay his action of opening, and part of that will happen from just making these blinks have a little longer. But make it, maybe about 4 to 6 frames later than after this kind of finishes. So it's completely still for at least 4 to 6 frames before he starts doing his stuff. I think it'll give our eye a chance to move over to him, and it'll also feel like we know he hasn't seen this event occur. He just opens his eyes and he sees a completely still thing. Like yeah, the rotating is nice, but I think that probably doesn't help. Maybe the rotating's okay. Maybe it just needs to be a little later.
Mine.
Okay, cool, man. Let me look. One more thing. Just watch out for your side here. I'm guessing that's like a smear frame. Since it's kind of only really happening for one frame and it flips directions, it just reads weird. And then we probably would need to see something here to help connect it up with what's happening the frame before. Yeah. Always give the props as much love as everything else, especially something big like this that's like, very easy to track and all over the frame type of thing. It can potentially be a distracting element. But that being said, really enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of my feedback, and I would just say keep working on this type